Hi there, I'm Lewis Foster, a journalist in the Manx Radio newsroom. Thank you for choosing this edition of Newscast. The Chief Executive of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution says Sir William Hillary would be proud of what the life-saving charity represents today. Sir William, a Manx resident, founded the institution 200 years ago after witnessing shipwrecks off the Manx coast and being involved in several rescue efforts. Born in Yorkshire on the 4th of January 1771, he moved to Douglas in his late 30s and later died on the Isle of Man on the 5th of January 1847. It's because of him the Tower of Refuge stands on Conister Rock in Douglas Bay. A bronze statue of Sir William stands on Douglas Head looking out towards it. After marking the occasion on Douglas Promenade, the RNLI held its annual service in St George's Church in Douglas, the site of Sir William's tomb. Chief Executive Mark Dowie laid a wreath on behalf of RNLI President, His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent. The RNLI says its philosophy remains the same as it was in 1824, its vision to save every one. Since then, it's saved over 144,000 lives, evolving from oar-powered boats to modern vessels and expanding its impact globally. By the bronze memorial sculpture on Douglas Promenade depicting one of those early oar-powered boats, I spoke with Mr. Dowie. What do you have on your mind today?
Well, really the extraordinary vision that Sir William had now a little more than 100 years ago, because he first wrote his letter in 1823. And the vision that has stayed completely constant for 200 years. I mean, almost everything he wrote in his pamphlet back in 1823 is still relevant today. And he would recognise the service that's provided by the RNLI right around the coast of the UK and Ireland and the Isle of Man. He recognised that as being within his vision.
Those resolutions that became involved into the Charter as well, how important is it that they remain that way and the RNLI remembers its roots and sticks to that promise as it was that came about so many years ago?
It's absolutely vital. I think it's really the secret to how the RNLI has survived in it and grown and really prospered over 200 years. It's constancy of purpose. We are about saving lives at sea. That is what we do. We won't be distracted from that, and we will take that to all the shores of the UK and Ireland and overseas too.
200 years, a massive amount of change over that time, and we look over our shoulder here at this memorial of men in oar-powered boats. When you think about the bravery of the volunteers today and think about what it was like for those men putting their lives at risk though 2 centuries ago, what does it spring to mind?
Well, the mission's the same. I think the kit is obviously very different. Also, the people are different. If you look back 200 years, almost all of the people who served in lifeboats then would have been professional mariners of one sort or another, mainly fishermen. These days, and they would all have been men too, by the way. These days, of course, it's a much, much broader net that we cast, and we have butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, and a lot of women in crews too. So that has changed. The kit has changed, the training has changed. It's a more, in inverted commas, professional service, if you like, but at the core, it's about volunteers going to save lives at sea.
And I read that you're a former naval officer yourself and a bit of a history buff as well. To be standing here and thinking back to that time, your senses must be fizzing in a way. Yeah,
well, they are. I mean, it's very special to be here. I've been here before and I've visited all the lifeboat stations in the Isle of Man twice now. It's like ground zero for the RNLI here. Douglas is the #1 station, and it's where it all started.
How is the Isle of Man regarded around the RNLI further afield as well in the UK?
Well, there's a very strong sense of this is where we came from. The Isle of Man, in the middle of the Irish Sea, of course, has both Ireland and Scotland and England on either side of it. It's a bit like a lifeboat aircraft carrier, if you like, in the middle of the Irish Sea. And the people here are very well loved. We all get together, of course, very often. I mean, all the training that happens in Poole involves lifeboat stations and people from all over the RNLI, and so we'll know each other. There'll be strong friendships between the people in the Isle of Man and elsewhere in the RNLI.
And as we come together today to commemorate the man who's responsible for thousands of lives being saved from the snare of rough seas, and you look over your shoulder and you see a sea that is flat as a pond, almost paying respect to the man himself. Can I get your last thoughts on Sir William Hillary and the lifeboat volunteer of today?
I think Sir William would look at us today and be very proud of what he'd created. 144,000 lives have been saved since the start of the RNLI. It's a vibrant, strong service that's provided right around the coast of the UK and Ireland. He'd be very proud.
Alan Corlett, volunteer lifeboat operations manager at Peel Lifeboat Station and chair of the Isle of Man 200th anniversary panel, told me what residents can look out for this year.
Well, this year actually started last year, which sounds a little strange, I know, but we began about 2 years ago now, and so far we've got a partnership with Fenoddery Gin, who've been very, very supportive. We have a good relationship with Visit Isle of Man, who've been tremendously helpful in producing leaflets for us. We've had a gala ball so far. We've launched to the visitor trade and the visitor industry on the Isle of Man, but now this is the first event that's actually happening, the William Hillary service today, the first event that's happening in 2024 for us, but then we move from there. Next month into February, Manx National Heritage have been terrifically supportive, and they are launching an exhibition in the House of Manannan in Peel, which will have a maritime theme but largely centred around Sir William Hillary and the RNLI. That'll be fantastic. That'll run for the rest of the year, and we move forward from there. Really, all sorts of things will appear.
And I spoke to Mark about how the RNLI was regarded further afield over in the UK as well. But how many years have you been involved on the Isle of Man in the RNLI, and how do you think it's regarded here? Well,
me personally, I've been involved for over 40 years now, for 42 years, and I think the RNLI is held in the highest esteem in the Isle of Man. I mean, and so it should be. It's only been founded once, and that was here. You know, nobody else can claim that accolade at all. So it's held in amazingly high esteem on the island, and I'm very, very proud of that.
And we've talked about how the charter all those years ago has remained fundamental to what the RNLI does today. When you look at the lifeboat crews we have around the island, do you think that pays respect to those founding moments?
Oh, indeed, absolutely. We have the most wonderful set of volunteers you could ever wish for, really, and they compare very favourably with anywhere else throughout the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. They're wonderful.
Throughout this year, what would you encourage Manx residents to be thinking about?
I would encourage Manx residents to be conscious of our history of the RNLI in the Isle of Man, but also to look to the future. We want to engage now with the next generation, the generation beyond that even. What will the RNLI look like in 100 years' time, 200 years' time, maybe? Yeah, and we need to plan for that. So it's really looking for people just to engage, people to communicate with us, people to come down to a boathouse, not necessarily get involved in fundraising, but if they do, that's brilliant. Just become involved, young people particularly.
And finally, Emily Heaton, who became Douglas Lifeboat Station's first female coxswain in 2023.
I'm thinking what a great day it is to be part of, and how proud we all are to be volunteers in this really special year, and what a great celebration today's going to be.
And how much work have you had to put in as well? I know you've been looking at what's planned this afternoon at the commemoration event in St George's in Douglas. Tell us about the background and what's gone into that.
So the service is an annual service, so the sort of foundations of it have always been there, and we've built upon that to make it a bigger event this year. Historically it's been sort of Douglas's event, but it's island-wide this year and with lots more invited guests. So yeah, there's been a lot of work gone in behind the scenes.
And 200 years, we've been talking about the charter and those fundamentals of what make up the RNLI. Is that something that plays in your mind every time you're going out to sea, perhaps, or just getting kitted up as you are now?
It absolutely does, because Sir William Hillary founded the institution with those sort of 12 principles in place, and they are still meaningful and in place and relevant today to all of us who give up our time, whether that be as fundraisers but also going out to sea.
They are charity donations that keep the RNLI going, aren't they? In terms of fundraising, how important is it this year to be thinking about keep propping up the RNLI and putting a penny or two towards the institution?
It absolutely is. The institution has kept going for 200 years, as you say, by way of fundraising, voluntary donations, and by people giving a huge amount of their time. And for us to be able to set the foundations now to continue for the next 200 years and beyond is absolutely vital.
And just finally then, what would you say to someone who's thinking about becoming a lifeboat volunteer? How much pride do you feel when you are kitted out like you are?
My advice would always be, go and do it. It was the best thing I ever did.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Little Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.